I watched my son betray his dying wife in the most unpardonable way. And when I finally confronted him, the words that came out of my mouth shattered our family forever. What I discovered in her final days made me question everything I thought I knew about the boy I raised. Stay until the end, because the truth about what really happened will leave you speechless. This is a story about betrayal, justice, and a mother's impossible choice. Subscribe to Tales with Aunt Clara for true family stories that will change how you see the world. Hit that notification bell, because you won't want to miss what happens next. My name is Margaret, but most people call me Maggie. I'm 73 years old, and I've lived through wars, recessions, heartbreak, and joy. I raised 3 children on my own after my husband passed away when they were still young. My oldest son, David, was always my pride and joy. Smart, handsome, ambitious. Everyone in our small town of Millbrook knew David was going places. When David brought Emily home for the first time, I knew she was special. She had this light about her, this genuine warmth that made everyone feel seen. She was a kindergarten teacher, the kind of woman who spent her own money on classroom supplies and stayed late to help struggling students. She wore simple dresses and had a laugh that could fill a room. They got married on a beautiful September afternoon. Emily's father walked her down the aisle with tears streaming down his face. David looked at her like she hung the moon and stars. I remember thinking, as I watched them exchange vows, that I could finally rest easy knowing my son had found his person. For the first 8 years of their marriage, they were genuinely happy. They bought a modest home on Elm Street, the kind with a front porch perfect for morning coffee and evening wine. Emily painted the walls in warm colors and filled every room with plants, and their house became home. David worked hard at his accounting firm, grinding his way up the ladder, making a name for himself. They tried for years to have children. I watched Emily's face fall month after month when the test came back negative. They went through 2 rounds of IVF, spent thousands they didn't really have. When it didn't work, Emily cried in my arms for hours. But she picked herself up, threw herself into her teaching, and loved her students like they were her own. I thought their love would survive anything. I was wrong. It started with fatigue. Emily mentioned it casually one Sunday dinner at my house. "I just can't seem to shake this tiredness," she said, pushing food around her plate. "Must be the new school year wearing me out." But it wasn't just fatigue. Over the next few months, I watched her lose weight. Her vibrant energy dimmed. The sparkle in her eyes faded to a dull glaze. She started wearing long sleeves, even in warm weather, and I noticed bruises blooming on her arms like dark flowers. David seemed oblivious. He was busy with a major client, working late nights, traveling for business. When Emily finally went to the doctor, he was on a business trip to Chicago. I was the one who drove her to get the results. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Inoperable. 6 months, maybe a year, with aggressive treatment. Emily was 34 years old. I held her hand as the doctor explained treatment options, survival rates, quality of life considerations. The medical jargon washed over us like a cold wave. When we got to the car, Emily didn't cry. She just stared straight ahead and said, "I need to tell David." He came home 2 days later. I wasn't there for that conversation, but Emily told me later that he held her and cried. He promised he would be there for everything. Every appointment, every treatment, every difficult day. He promised. The chemotherapy started. In October, I drove Emily to most of her appointments because David always seemed to have important meetings he couldn't miss. "It's okay," Emily would say, her voice weak but still trying to reassure me. "He's working hard to keep our insurance. We need it now more than ever." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe my son was the man I raised him to be. The treatments were brutal. Emily would come home gray and shaking, barely able to lift her head. She lost her beautiful auburn hair in clumps. She lost 30 pounds from her already slim frame. But the worst part was watching her spirit break down, piece by piece, as she realized she was fighting this battle mostly alone. David was gone more and more. Business dinners, client emergencies, networking events. He always had an explanation, always sounded reasonable. But I started to notice things. The way he checked his phone constantly. The new cologne he wore. The extra care he took with his appearance. I pushed the thoughts away. Surely my son wouldn't. Not while his wife was dying. Not David. It was Emily's best friend, Rachel, who first told me the truth. She came to my house on a cold November evening, her face twisted with anger and sorrow. "Maggie, I need to tell you something about David," she said, her hands shaking as she held a cup of tea I'd made her. "And you're going to hate me for it, but Emily won't say anything, and someone needs to." My stomach dropped. "What is it?" "He's seeing someone. Maybe multiple someones. I've seen him around town with different women. At restaurants, at the bar on Main Street, in his car parked by the lake. Emily knows, Maggie. She knows, and she said nothing because she doesn't want to burden anyone with it." I felt like I'd been struck. How long? At least 2 months. Maybe longer. I couldn't breathe. My son. My David. The boy I had brought up to be decent and good. The man who had vowed to love and cherish Emily in sickness and in health. That night, I didn't sleep. I replayed every interaction, every excuse, every time he'd missed an appointment or come home late. The signs had been there. I'd just been too blind or too hopeful to see them. I started paying closer attention. I would drive by their house at odd hours. I saw David leave in the evening, dressed nicely, claiming he was meeting colleagues. I followed him once, hating myself for it, but needing to know. He met a blonde woman at an upscale Italian restaurant across town. She wore a red dress that hugged her curves. They sat close, intimate. He touched her hand across the table. They laughed. While Emily lay at home, weak from chemotherapy, unable to keep food down, my son was on a date. I confronted him in the restaurant parking lot. He had just walked the woman to her car, kissed her on the cheek, and was heading to his own vehicle when I stepped out of the shadows. "Mom?" His face went pale in the streetlight. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing, David." He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he'd done since childhood when he was caught doing something wrong. "It's not what it looks like. Don't insult my intelligence," I said, my voice cold. "Your wife is dying, and you're out with other women? You don't understand what it's like," he said, and there was genuine anguish in his voice. "I'm losing her, Mom. She's already gone in so many ways. She can't do anything anymore. She can barely stay awake. I'm grieving her while she's still here, and I'm so fucking lonely." The raw pain in his words caught me off guard, but it didn't excuse what he was doing. "Then be lonely," I said. "Sit with that grief. Hold your wife's hand. Be there for her last months on this earth. That's what love means, David. It means showing up when it's hard, when it hurts, when there's nothing in it for you anymore." "I can't," he whispered. "I can't watch her die every single day. It's killing me." "Then you're weak," I said, and my voice broke. "You're weak and selfish, and I'm ashamed to call you my son." He flinched as if I'd slapped him. "Mom, go home to your wife," I said. "Or don't. But know that I see you now for who you really are." I drove away, leaving him standing in that parking lot, and I cried the entire way home. The next day, I visited Emily. David was at work, of course. She was on the couch, wrapped in blankets despite the heat being turned up. Her skin had taken on a yellowish tinge, a sign the cancer was affecting her liver. "Emily, honey," I said, sitting beside her and taking her frail hand. "Why didn't you tell me?" She didn't ask what I meant. She just smiled sadly. "Because I didn't want you to hate him." "How long have you known?" "Since the beginning. Since the second week of chemo." She coughed, a deep rattling sound. I saw a text on his phone. He'd been careless. It was from someone named Brittany, very explicit about what she wanted to do to him when they met up. I felt tears burning my eyes. "Why didn't you say anything? Why did you let him? Because I love him," she said simply. "And I'm dying. I'm dying, Maggie, and I don't have the energy to fight about this. I don't have the energy to be angry or hurt or to demand better. I just want peace in whatever time I have left." "You deserve better than peace," I said fiercely. "You deserve justice. You deserve a husband who loves you enough to be faithful while you're fighting for your life." She squeezed my hand weakly. "Maybe, but I also deserve not to spend my final months in constant conflict. I've made my peace with it." "Well, I haven't," I said. Emily looked at me with those tired eyes, and for the first time, I saw not just the sickness but the deep, profound betrayal she'd been carrying alone. "Promise me something," she said. "Promise me you won't do anything until after I'm gone." I don't want my last days to be filled with family drama. Please, Maggie. For me. I didn't want to promise. I wanted to burn David's world down right then and there. But looking at Emily's face, seeing how much she needed this one thing from me, I nodded. I promise. But after, all bets are off. She smiled. I wouldn't expect anything less from you. Emily declined rapidly after that conversation. By December, she was a hospital bed we'd set up in the living room. Hospice nurses came twice daily. The house smelled of medication and the peculiar sweet sick scent of someone whose body is shutting down. I spent every day there. I read to her when she was awake. I moistened her lips with sponges when she could no longer drink. I held her hand through the waves of pain that even the morphine couldn't fully touch. David came home every evening, but even then, I could see him checking his phone, having whispered conversations in the other room, leaving 4 errands that took hours. Emily's parents flew in from Oregon. Her mother, Carol, was a small woman with Emily's same warm eyes. She sobbed when she saw her daughter, and I held her as she cried. Emily's father, Tom, was stoic, but I saw him wipe his eyes when he thought no one was looking. They stayed in a hotel nearby, visiting every day. I had never told them about David's affairs. It was Emily's story to tell, and she had chosen silence. On December 23rd, Emily had a moment of clarity. She asked for everyone to leave except David and me. When the room was clear, she looked at her husband with love that broke my heart. David, she said, her voice barely a whisper, I forgive you. He broke down. He sobbed like a child, clutching her hand. I'm so sorry. God, Emily, I'm so sorry. I love you. I have always loved you. I know, she said. I know you do. But you're weak, baby. You're weak, and you need to be stronger. For the next person who loves you. Be better. And she looked at me. Maggie, thank you for everything. For loving me like a daughter. For being here when. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. I love you, sweetheart. I said, tears streaming down my face. I love you so much. Emily died on Christmas morning. The hospice nurse said she simply stopped breathing peacefully in her sleep. David was in the room. For once, he had been there. We buried Emily on a gray December day. The funeral home was packed with her students, fellow teachers, friends, and family. Person after person stood up to talk about her kindness, her generosity, her light. David delivered a eulogy that was beautifully written and perfectly delivered. He talked about their love story, their dreams, the life they'd built together. He cried at all the right moments. Everyone comforted him, this grieving husband who had lost his wife too soon. I sat in the front row and felt nothing but cold fury. At the reception afterward, held at a local restaurant, I watched David accept condolences with somber grace. I saw him hug Emily's mother, saw her tell him that Emily was lucky to have had him. I also saw him check his phone repeatedly. I saw him step outside for a hush phone call, and when he came back in, I saw a small smile play at the corner of his mouth before he remembered to look sad again. That's when 5 women, I repeated, while Emily was dying, while she was in pain, while she was losing her hair, while she was fighting for every breath. You were sleeping with 5 different women. I know how it sounds, do you? I stood up, my hands gripping the edge of the table. Do you really? Because I don't think you do. I don't think you understand the magnitude of what you've done. I was grieving, he said, standing as well. I was losing my wife, and I couldn't handle it. So you handled it by betraying her in the deepest way possible? My voice rose. So you handled it by making her final months on Earth even more painful, because she knew, David. She knew about every single one of them. His face crumpled. She knew. Of course she knew. She wasn't stupid. She was dying, not blind. She saw you checking your phone. She smelled the perfume on your clothes. She saw you pulling away from her when she needed you most. Why didn't she say anything? Because she loved you. I was shouting now. Because even when you betrayed her, even when you broke her heart over and over again, she loved you enough to let you have your peace. She didn't want to spend her last days fighting with you. David sank back into his chair, his head in his hands. And you know what the worst part is? I continued, my voice breaking. The worst part is that she forgave you. On her deathbed, she forgave you. She told you to be better for the next person. Even after everything, she was thinking about your future happiness. I know, he sobbed. I know, and it kills me. Good, I said coldly. It should kill you. You should carry that guilt for the rest of your life. Mom, please, this is where I said what I can never take back. This is the moment I destroy my son. I looked. I knew what I had to do. I waited 2 weeks. Emily's parents had flown home. The casseroles and condolence cards had stopped coming. David had returned to work, resuming his normal life with remarkable speed. I invited him to dinner at my house. He came probably expecting comfort and support from his mother. I made his favorite meal, pot roast with roasted vegetables and mashed potatoes. I set the table with my good china. I poured wine. I was the picture of the supportive, loving mother. We made small talk through dinner. He told me about returning to work, about how understanding his colleagues had been. He mentioned he was thinking about selling the house, that it held too many painful memories. That's a good idea, I said evenly. Fresh start and all. After dinner, I brought out dessert apple pie, which he loved. I cut him a generous slice and topped it with vanilla ice cream. Mom, this is great, he said. Thank you. I know I haven't been the easiest person to be around lately. David, I said, sitting across from him. I need to ask you something. Sure, anything. How many were there? His fork paused halfway to his mouth. What? How many women did you sleep with while your wife was dying of cancer? The color drained from his face. Mom, don't lie to me, I said, my voice sharp. I know about Brittany. I know about the blonde from the Italian restaurant. I know about the brunette I saw you with at the coffee shop on Maple Street. I know about all of it, David. So I'm asking you, how many? He set down his fork. His hands were shaking. 5, he whispered. There were 5. The number hung in the air between us like a guillotine blade. At him, this man I had raised, this person I thought I knew, and I felt such overwhelming disgust that the words came out before I could stop them. You are not the man I raised, I said slowly, deliberately. You are not the boy who cried when we found an injured bird and spent all night nursing it back to health. You're not the teenager who worked 2 jobs to help pay for your sister's surgery. You are not the man who promised to love Emily forever. Mom, let me finish, I said. I look at you now, and I don't recognize you. You're a stranger wearing my son's face. And I want you to know that I am ashamed of you. I am deeply, profoundly ashamed to call you my son. His face went white. I wish, I continued, and these were the words that would haunt me, the words that crossed a line I could never uncross. I wish it had been you instead of her. Emily was worth 100 of you. She was good and pure and kind. And you're nothing. You're a coward and a cheater, and the world is worse for having you in it and better for having lost her. The silence that followed was deafening. David stared at me as if I had physically struck him. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Get out of my house, I said. Get out, and don't come back until you've figured out how to be a man worthy of the woman who loved you. He stood up mechanically, like a puppet on strings. He walked to the door, stopped, turned back. I thought, he said, his voice hollow, that no matter what I did, no matter how badly I screwed up, you would always love me. That's what mothers do, right? They love their children unconditionally. I do love you, I said, and tears were streaming down my face. But I don't like you very much right now, and I don't want you in my life until you can look at yourself in the mirror and see what I see, a man who destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. He left without another word. That was 6 months ago. David hasn't spoken to me since. He didn't return my calls on his birthday. He didn't come to Easter dinner. When I ran into him at the grocery store last month, he turned and walked the other way. My daughter, Lisa, is furious with me. How could you say that to him? She demanded during our last conversation. How could you tell your own child that you wish he was dead instead? That's not exactly what I said. I protested weakly. It's close enough. Mom, David is falling apart. He's in therapy twice a week. He's on antidepressants. He sold the house and moved into a tiny apartment. He doesn't talk to anyone. Good, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. Is it good? Lisa asked. Is it good that your son is broken? Does that bring Emily back? It doesn't, of course. Nothing brings Emily back. My youngest, Michael, takes a more measured approach. I get why you're angry, he said over coffee last week. David did something unforgivable. But Mom, You said something pretty unforgivable, too. He needed to hear it. Did he? Or did you need to say it? I think about that question constantly. Did David need to hear those words? Or did I just need to purge the rage and betrayal I felt on Emily's behalf? I visit Emily's grave every Sunday. I bring fresh flowers and tell her about my week. I tell her I'm sorry I couldn't protect her. I tell her I'm sorry her husband wasn't strong enough to be what she deserved. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing. Sometimes I wonder if my words were justice or just cruelty. Last week, I received a letter from David. It was handwritten on simple notebook paper, his familiar scrawl covering both sides. Dear Mom, I've started this letter 100 times and thrown it away 100 times. I don't know how to bridge this gap between us. I don't know if it's even possible. You were right about everything. I was weak. I was selfish. I betrayed Emily in the worst way possible, and I will carry that guilt until the day I die. There's no excuse for what I did. There's no making it right. But I need you to know some things. I need you to understand, even if you can never forgive. I was so scared, Mom. I was 26 when we got married, 34 when she got sick. I thought we'd have 50 years together. I thought we'd grow old and gray together, watch our grandchildren play in our backyard, argue about stupid things like where to go for vacation or whether to get a dog. When she got diagnosed, it felt like the world ended. Not just her world, our world. Everything we'd planned, everything we dreamed, gone in an instant. I know I should have been stronger. I know I should have held her hand and faced it together. But I couldn't, Mom. I couldn't watch her fade away day after day. I couldn't be the person she needed me to be because I was drowning in my own grief and fear. The affairs weren't about love. They weren't even about sex, really. They were about escape. For a few hours, I could pretend I was a normal guy on a date with a normal girl living a normal life. I could forget that my wife was home dying. I could forget that I was failing her. I know how pathetic that sounds. Trust me, I know. I've been in therapy since our fight. I'm learning things about myself that are hard to face. My therapist says I have issues with emotional avoidance and fear of abandonment. She says the affairs were my maladaptive way of coping with the impending loss. None of that excuses what I did, but it helps me understand why I did it. The thing that haunts me most is that Emily knew. She knew, and she still loved me. She still forgave me. She was dying, and she spent energy worrying about my future happiness. What kind of man receives that kind of love and throws it away? A man like me, apparently. Mom, what you said to me that night nearly destroyed me. You told me you wished it had been me instead of Emily, and honestly, I wish that too. The world would be better off with Emily in it instead of me. She was everything good, and I'm working on not being everything bad. But here's what I need you to know. I loved her. I loved Emily with everything I had, even though everything I had wasn't enough. I loved her badly, poorly, weakly. But I did love her. And I love you, Mom. Even though I understand if you can't love me back right now. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking you to forget what I did or what you said. I'm just asking you to maybe, someday, consider that people are complicated. That I can be both the boy who nursed the bird back to health and the man who betrayed his dying wife. That both of those things are true. I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to be the man Emily believed I could be. I volunteer at the hospice center now. I sit with patients who have no family, hold their hands, read to them. It doesn't make up for anything, but it's something. I think about Emily every day. I dream about her at night. In my dreams, she's healthy and laughing, and we're young again, and I'm doing everything right this time. Then I wake up, and I remember, and the weight of it all comes crashing down. I don't know how to end this letter. I don't know what else to say except that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry I failed Emily. I'm sorry I disappointed you. I'm sorry I'm not the son you deserve. But I'm here. I'm trying, and I'm not giving up on being better. With love, David, I've read that letter every day since it arrived. I've cried over it. I've raged against it. I've folded it carefully and put it away, then taken it out again an hour later to read it again. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to crumple it up and throw it away. Part of me wants to call him and tell him it's not enough, that words on paper don't undo the harm he caused. But part of me, a small part that's growing larger each day, wants to call him and say, come home. Because here's the truth I'm grappling with. My son did something terrible. Unforgivable. But I said something terrible too. I told my child I wished he was dead. What kind of mother does that? Emily forgave him with her dying breath. Who am I to hold on to this anger when the person who had the most right to it let it go? I talked to my pastor about it. Father Joseph has known our family for 30 years. He listened to the whole story, and when I finished, he was quiet for a long time. Margaret, he finally said, do you know what the hardest thing in the world is? What? Forgiving someone who doesn't deserve it. That's what grace is. That's what love is. Not loving people when they're easy to love, but loving them when they're at their worst. But what he did was wrong. Deeply, profoundly wrong. But you raised him in the faith. You taught him about forgiveness, about grace, about the possibility of redemption. Do you believe in those things or not? I don't know. I admitted. I want to. But I look at him, and I just see Emily's face. I see her suffering. Then see her forgiveness too, Father Joseph said gently. See her grace. See what she chose to do with her pain. I think about Rachel, Emily's best friend. I went to see her last month. She's been going through her own grief, her own anger. I hated him, she told me. I hated David so much for what he did to her. But then I found something. She pulled out a journal, Emily's handwriting filling the pages. She left this for me. Read this entry. It was dated 2 weeks before Emily died. Dear Rachel, I know you're angry at David. I know you want to protect me. I love you for it. But I need you to understand something. David is weak. He's terrified of loss. He's making terrible choices because he doesn't know how to face what's happening. I'm angry too. I am hurt. I feel betrayed every single day. But I also know that holding on to that anger is just poisoning the time I have left. I don't want to die angry. I don't want my last memories to be of fighting and resentment. I'm choosing to forgive him, not because he deserves it, but because I deserve peace. When I'm gone, please try to forgive him too. Not right away, take your time, be angry, grieve. But eventually, try to remember that hurt people hurt people. David is a hurt person who hurt me, but somewhere under all that pain is still the good man I fell in love with. Help him find that man again. Please. All my love. Emily, I closed the journal and cried. It's been 3 days since I read Emily's journal entry. 3 days of thinking, praying, and wrestling with what to do. I couldn't undo what I said to David. I couldn't undo what he did to Emily. Neither of us could go back and make different choices. But we could make different choices now. I picked up the phone this morning. My hand shook as I dialed his number. It rang 4 times, and I almost hung up. Then I heard his voice. Hello? David, I said. It's me. Silence. I got your letter. More silence. I think we should talk, if you're willing. I heard him take a shaky breath. I'm willing. How about Sunday? For dinner? Okay, he said quietly. Okay, Mom. We hung up. I sat there with the phone in my lap, not sure if I just made the right decision or another mistake to add to the pile. But Emily forgave him. And if that dying woman, who had every right to bitterness and rage, could find it in her heart to forgive the man who betrayed her, who am I to do less? I'm not saying everything is fixed. I'm not saying I'm suddenly okay with what David did. I'm not even sure I can ever fully forgive him. But I'm willing to try. Because at the end of the day, Emily taught me something important. You can acknowledge someone's failures and still love them. You can recognize that someone made terrible choices and still believe in their capacity for redemption. Life is messy. People are complicated. We all fall short in ways big and small. The question isn't whether we fail, we all do. The question is what we do after the failure. Do we give up? Do we hold grudges forever? Or do we try, however imperfectly, to be better? David is trying. I can see that in his letter, in his volunteering, in his therapy. He's not running away anymore. Maybe it's time I stopped running from this too. Sunday came faster than I expected. I spent all day cooking, making too much food as usual. Pot roast again, because it's his favorite. Green beans, mashed potatoes, apple pie for dessert. At 6 o'clock, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find my son standing there, looking older than I remembered. He'd lost weight. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. He held a bouquet of flowers daisies, my favorite. Hi, Mom, he said. David. We stood there for an awkward moment. Then I stepped aside. Come in. Dinner was quiet at first. We made small talk about safe topics, the weather, his job, my garden. But eventually, we had to address the elephant in the room. Mom, he started, setting down his fork. I need to say something. Okay, what I did to Emily was unforgivable. I know that. And what you said to me that night, his voice cracked. It was harsh, but it wasn't wrong. I deserved every word. David, no, let me finish. I've been thinking about this for months. You held up a mirror and made me see myself as I really was. Not the image I had of myself, but the reality. And it destroyed me, but also saved me. I felt tears welling up. I've been going to therapy, he continued. I've been working on understanding why I made those choices. I've been volunteering at hospice, trying to be the kind of man Emily deserved. I'm not there yet. I might never fully get there, but I'm trying. I know you are, I said. I saw it in your letter. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said, for what I did to Emily or for disappointing you. But I hope that maybe someday we can rebuild something. Maybe not what we had before, but something. I reached across the table and took his hand. I said something unforgivable, too. I told you I wished you were dead. David, I need you to know that I didn't mean that. I was angry and hurt, and I wanted you to feel pain because Emily was in pain. But it was cruel and wrong. You were protecting her memory, he said. Someone needed to. That doesn't make it right. We sat in silence for a moment, both of us crying. Emily wrote something in her journal. I said, about forgiveness. About how she chose to forgive you not because you deserved it, but because she deserved peace. I think I might be beginning to grasp what she meant. What do you mean? I mean that holding on to this anger, this disappointment, it's eating me alive. It's not punishing you, you're already punishing yourself more than I ever could. It's just making me bitter and sad. And Emily wouldn't want that. She'd want us both to heal. David squeezed my hand. I miss her so much. I know, baby. I know. We finished dinner.